Thank you to Sales Enablement Collective for having me. I have learned so much in my enablement journey already from a lot of folks in this room. For those of you who have spent time with me individually on the phone, responding to my leaky faucet of LinkedIn questions and emails, thank you so much. So hopefully you will learn a little bit from my experience, learn from my successes, my mistakes. Hopefully there's a nugget of value in here for you all. So let's get started. Yes, I am the founding member of the enablement team at a firm called Everest Group. Has anyone heard of Everest Group? No, that's fine. Okay, so a little bit of background about myself. I'm going to tie this into the presentation. I've been in sales and business development for about 14 years. Worked with the U.S. Department of State, enterprise SaaS startup called ISN Software, a firm maybe no one else has heard of called Gartner, Global Affairs Canada, which is like the U.S. Department of State, but for the Canadians, and now Everest Group. You might be asking, what does diplomatic service have to do with sales? And I will get into that. The skills that you use in the diplomatic service, negotiation, reading people, emotional intelligence, understanding your buyers, cold outreach, quid pro quo. There's a lot of skills that translate. So all of that has been through the lens of sales and business development. Now, Jack reached out to me to talk about my experience building sales enablement, and I'm going to talk to you about it from my perspective, which is not program and project management. Frankly, I'm not very good at those things, and I am hiring for my team in North America. If anyone's interested, please give me your business card. But I come from the sales background, so I think Ethan and maybe some other people in the room, you mentioned, sales, they don't keep CRM updated, they don't do this, or sales won't listen, they're like herding cats. Guilty as charged of all of these, so yes. And I'm here to bring you a little bit of perspective on how I built the onboarding program with my unique background and experience. So when it came to Everest Group, there is no sales training, period. 30-year-old firm. The sales training was, here's how you submit an expense report. We believe in you. Go get them, Tiger. Yeah, let's do it. Somehow we're still growing 30% year over year. Goal of doubling the sales team in less than 1 year. That's what I was told. There were about 16 people globally, APAC, UK, North America when I started. Actually, the head count has just hit about 50 this month. So I can't do math very well either, but that looks like more than double the head count in a year. And then analysts or engineers were accustomed to running most of the sales cycle. So we are a firm that was built by McKinsey consultants. I mean, people who are really smart with engineering degrees from MIT, very good at what they do, not killer salespeople, not the sharks and the hunters that typically we look for in a modern sales organization. So when I was looking at what this means in building an onboarding program, it really was a lot of firm-wide change management and cultural adjustments. Because before, where we had someone who's an analyst or a partner running a sales cycle, now we want to introduce somebody who has a completely different mindset, with a completely different set of priorities, who just wants to go, 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 shoot the arrow, nail the client, and it's a completely different point of view. So we were introducing into a 30-year firm the concept of a modern sales organization and how that operates. So it wasn't just an onboarding program. Okay, so those were the challenges. I'm going to talk about the philosophical approach. We're not going to get into a big tickle pile, but I think it's fun to talk about the philosophy and the mindset behind building an onboarding program in this specific environment. Okay. So, like I said, I didn't come from a program or project management background, so naturally I will apply my own sales skills and acumen to building an onboarding program. What does this mean? Had to define the value proposition. You have to talk to these 12 partners at Everest Group who are originally from McKinsey and places like that. What is the value of having a modern sales organization? What's the value of enabling them in a certain way? Also, how do we convince these people that 60 pages of dense content isn't going to work for a salesperson in a 30-minute discovery call? I'm serious, you're laughing. This is a real conversation. Managing stakeholders. So there's a lot of different cooks in the kitchen, and has been at Everest Group. It's a very collaborative culture, which I absolutely love. But this is challenging when building an onboarding program. I could not do this in a silo. Gaining executive buy-in. Fortunately, I've been reporting to the chief commercial officer, so there's a little pull that comes with that, right? But still needing to explain even to the CEO, this is what we need, this is what we expect, these are the resources that we need, explaining what product training should look like for salespeople. So there's a lot of different stakeholders, a lot of executive level conversations that have had to happen to convince them that the way of this onboarding program is the way to go, right? Do y'all watch Mandalorian? This is the way. That didn't go over so well. I had to have 60 slides of data to back it up. Okay. Establish a valid business reason for each session. So this comes from, if you're familiar with Miller-Hyman International Sales Methodology, the VBR, a valid business reason for every single meeting is paramount to making sure that you're bringing value to the client. Now, I went into this thinking, every single session needs to have a valid business reason. What is the purpose of this onboarding session? Again, I'm a salesperson. I'm not ready to get in a big tickle pile, and I know we need some of that sometimes, and we need the team building and everything, but there needs to be some structure and purpose around these onboarding sessions. And then overcoming objections. Like I said, ensuring a company-wide understanding of what a modern sales organization looks like. So communication is critical. When I wrote my job description and the role, we put in communications because that was going to be such a key piece. Part of this challenge was also figuring out what should our communication between the sales organization and the rest of the firm look like. What are the vehicles? What is the communication strategy? How often should we be speaking to whom and at what frequency and through what channels? Okay, so this is where I told you that diplomatic service would come into play, right? So when I saw we've got these different personas, we need to, first of all, understand each other, right? So the analysts, they have a very obviously analytical mindset. They like to opine sometimes. They like to go through all the different facets of a problem, and this could be a discussion that takes place for hours over weeks and weeks. Yeah, we ain't got time for that. We need to make some decisions and make some moves. So then we have the sales executive persona. This is non-exhaustive. This is a real example that we've developed. I've taken some scissors to it to make it a bit smaller, but there were specific things that we needed to communicate about a modern salesperson to the rest of the firm to help them understand where is this coming from, because if they cannot understand each other, then there will be friction, then there will be conflict, then there will be pointy elbows on, you know, well, they said this, or they didn't copy me on this calendar invite. And there needs to be, first of all, a baseline understanding of who your other people, your colleagues are, and why they think the way that they think. So we took the idea of buyer personas, and we created the analyst persona, and we created the sales executive persona. Even things like required to achieve annual quota in order to earn target compensation. If someone has been in more of an engineering or an analyst role for their entire career, they may not always realize or be cognizant of the fact that salespeople have that number, and that a lot of them will come in scared. If I don't hit my number, my head could be on the chopping block, right? They need to understand what is motivating the salesperson and vice versa. At Everest Group, we have a unique model where we incentivize the analyst for sales as well, and their career progression is actually tied to how many memberships and the dollars that they sell for their specific product. So there's an incentive naturally there to work with the salespeople. The question is how? What does that look like? You know, a lot of times our analysts, since they don't have the sales training, they're very smart. They want to show everything to the client. Look at all these things that we can do. You know, we used to call that show up and throw up, not super effective. It's kind of gross sounding now that I say it on stage. But then we need the salespeople who are able to have conversational agility, who can get to the business problems, who do their research and they come prepared with a hypothesis on the client's business problems, and making sure that they can tie what we do to what the client's business problems are. We need them to be able to go down deep in the conversation, or when it gets too deep, we need them to elevate the altitude of that conversation and tie it back to the value proposition, the so what for that client. Strengths and abilities and communication style. I particularly liked putting communication style on here because it was very different for both of them. Communication style, sales, direct, succinct, synthesized approach to absorbing information. I'm sorry, we cannot do an hour-long product training with 43 slides. It's just not going to work. Really? Yes, it's not going to work. So funny story, we've come to a compromise internally where our analysts say, 60 minutes, Lauren, no way I can do it in less than an hour. The salespeople are saying, no way will I sit through more than 30 minutes of product training. So now we have Everest Group University where the trainings are 45 minutes, 30 minutes of product training, and 15 minutes for Q&A and any just continued rambling. So that is our compromise. Oh, that's the laser. Okay, then after we'd established the two personas, we talk about how do they work together. So these are our guiding principles. We have collaboration, communication, trust is key, and consistency in the process. Trust is key, very important, because a lot of our analysts, like I said, they're very smart. They understand these clients' businesses far deeper than a salesperson can or should know, right? And so we need the salespeople and the analysts to trust each other to do the jobs that they were hired for. And sometimes that can be hard, right? You've got someone who sees, oh, they fumbled over that question. I'm going to jump in and jump into this vacuum to make sure we're serving the client. We still have to teach them to trust each other and to be able to be comfortable passing that volleyball back and forth. Okay. Next, I'm going to talk about your mindset as a leader in sales enablement. So how many people here are one-person enablement shops? Okay, that's actually a pretty large percentage for this group. Okay, so you are a leader. You may not have direct reports, but you are a leader. So your mindset as a leader. Who is familiar with John Maxwell's 21 Laws of Irrefutable Leadership? Thank you. Anyone else? Great book, if you like to read. John Maxwell's 21 Laws of Leadership. Also Dale Carnegie's How to Win Friends and Influence People. So your mindset as a leader. Would anyone like to shout out, what do you think leadership is? Definition. Listening. That's a good part. Influence. Ding, 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 you're a winner. All right. John Maxwell says leadership is influence, nothing more, nothing less. Different from management, that's a side note, you get this for free. Management is a separate discipline. If you really want to read up on management, John Cotter or The 1 Minute Manager, great book as well. Okay, John Maxwell leadership is influence, nothing more, nothing less. So whether or not you have direct reports, you are a leader because to do your job, you need to have influence in the organization. All right, anyone can steer the ship, but it takes a leader to chart the course. So especially when you are a one-person enablement function, or really any function, whether that's RevOps or some other, whatever you are within the organization, you need to be always thinking about the course. Where are you taking the organization? Even if you feel that enablement is a smaller piece of the overall sales organization, you are like a rudder on that ship. Without leadership, which is influence, thank you, you won't have the internal buy-in and support network that you need to make it happen. This is very, very important. But an enablement professional who can both plan well and lead is dangerous. I wish I had some James Bond music to play. All right, so I'm going to talk about, I think this is law number 4 in that book, the law of navigation. This, I think, is particularly relevant to when you are building an onboarding program or anything from scratch. So the story is there were two guys, Roald Amundsen and Robert Falcon Scott, and they both had a goal of reaching the South Pole. One failed miserably, horribly. He killed everybody on the expedition. Terrible track record. 0 stars, would not recommend. And then Roald Amundsen, the worst injury that happened was somebody had a sore tooth, which in the 1800s, that's probably the least of your worries. All right, so the entire Scott expedition perished because he did not plan. He decided to take motorized sleds and ponies into subarctic temperatures. He took on an extra person because it was a buddy, but didn't plan for the extra rations. Too much baggage, inadequate equipment. They actually had to, all the animals perished as well. It was really awful. And like I said, Roald Amundsen, he got dog sleds, right? He studied what had been successful in the North Pole expeditions, and he planned everything in a very similar environment. So he did his research, he planned, and he charted the course for his entire expedition. Excellent leader. He hit the goal and everybody survived, just a little toothache. So good navigators see the trip ahead, draw on past experience. So whatever your experience has been, you can use that. Think about your unique background and what you've done and how can you apply that to what you're doing. And if you don't feel that you have the right experience, this is where you can talk to people here, or other people. Reach out on LinkedIn, draw on others' past experience. Even if it's not something you've done yourself, you can use other people's experience to chart your course. Examine the conditions before making commitments. This is very challenging, and I myself have been guilty of this, of being that yes person, saying, yeah, I can do that, yeah, I can do that. Well, have you looked at the conditions? Is that truly something that you can do that will lead you to your KPIs at the end of the year and lead you to helping everyone sell more? My boss often says, examine what you're doing. If you're not doing something that helps somebody to sell more, then you shouldn't be doing it, because that's sales enablement, right? So think about what you're doing. And make sure that the conclusions represent both faith and fact. I, as a salesperson particularly, am guilty of getting happy ears and saying, yeah, that sounds great, we can do that. Well, where's the data to back it up? All right. I keep pressing the laser. Strategic framework. Okay, I'm going to share with you a little bit about what we did at Everest Group framework, and then dive a little bit deeper into some tactical tips. All right, begin with the end in mind. This is a Stephen Covey concept. Lots of book recommendations here if you're interested. If you're scaling for growth, then everything you build in the onboarding program should be a building block for a longer term goal. So does anybody like Legos? Some Lego fans, yeah. So when you're building Legos, you can build a little piece, and if you build that little section, maybe you can take it off, stick it on something else that you're building, and it's kind of modularized in a way, right? I know my 6-year-old daughter is much better at Legos than I am, but this is what I observe. So when we think at Everest Group about the onboarding program, our end goal is a sales academy, which sounds very lofty, like a very lofty goal for a 500-person company that's only 50 salespeople. But we want to be able to build a path where we can bring people in from college. We can teach them this is the way, and then we can teach them sales skills and make them killer salespeople within our unique environment. So everything in the onboarding program that I'm building now and that we've built is intended to be repurposed for the Sales Academy in the long term, building modules that can be dragged and dropped into the different learning paths. Also ask yourself, what is your goal for them to be able to do once they get out of onboarding? And this can be a very difficult question to answer once you really start reflecting, because it could be a lot of things. Do you want them to be really good at building pipeline? Do you want them to close deals in a certain amount of time? Do you want them to be able to certify on certain products? Our goal was simply, at the beginning, we need them to build pipe and be able to build it really fast. We've got the support structures in place with our analysts to help them sell and be the product experts, but we need them to build pipeline, because pipeline cures all ills at the end of the day. So that was our goal. And we did, just as an aside, once the onboarding was in place, we reduced that ramp time from 6 months to 3 months, and the data that we saw, how fast reps were able to build pipeline once they got into the job. Okay, this is the structure of our onboarding program. Ta-da! It is 4 steps. The first module is learning the company. Where are the paper clips? Where are the bathrooms? The question that we're answering for them is, what is my new environment? This is a layered approach to learning. The second module, learn the job. Okay, I know my new environment. How do I now operate within this new environment? Step 3, learn the products. We have 72 products and counting, so they cannot be experts on any of them, but they need to understand the value proposition. So if I have all these products I can sell, what's in my toolbox? Okay, what are the products that we sell? I give them often the analogy of, I'm taking you to the grocery store. We're walking down the aisles of H-E-B, and I'm showing you where the produce section is, where the brisket section is, where the poultry section is, or the bath products. I don't know what y'all shop for. But we're not going to pick up the products and look at the ingredients, and we're not going to make a meal. I'm just taking you on a tour of H-E-B, and that way you know what is available to you in your toolbox, and then you can work on learning how to make a meal from scratch later. Step 4, learning the sales process. How do I use my tools at the right time to obtain the right outcome while operating in my new environment? So this is the accumulation of everything that we've done over the past 3 weeks. Week 4, learning the sales process, discovery call role play to sign off and get a little bit of feedback, and then the baby birds are out of the nest. Tactical tips. All right, first onboarding session. Again, I'm a salesperson. Sorry, I don't know any other way to run this. It's a discovery call. So they don't even know that they're being assessed. But when I do a welcome session with them, welcome, we're so happy to have you here. Where did you come from? Okay, yeah, that's where everybody comes from, great. I'm trying to uncover what they know. I need to understand, what do they know about what we do? Because Everest Group is very unique. We provide market research on BPO, IT services, market intelligence focused on the global services delivery market. Nobody wakes up thinking about outsourcing, so I have to understand, what do they know about our environment already? What do they know about our business model, our products, and what are the predispositions to the job role based on past experience? So I said, we are building a modern sales org in the framework of a 30-year-old research company run by McKinsey analysts. What are their preconceived notions about being in sales and their job that I'm going to have to rip apart or tweak or help them to see that we do things a little bit differently? I'm sure you guys face that challenge as well with new hires, right? Well, I was a killer salesperson at the SaaS company for 8 years, and we always did the demo before the POC. Okay, cool. You're not there anymore. So we have to, help them readjust, right? Challenger, teach, tailor, take control. We have to reframe their thinking. This is from the very first call or welcome session with a new hire. This is the opportunity to start teaching the competitive advantage differentiation. So we get a lot of hires from Gartner, Forrester, IDC, market research firms, but they do things much differently. So immediately in the first session, when I hear they've come from one of those, I'll latch on and say, okay, well, I know you did it this way, and this is the type of stakeholder you sold to, but think about it this way. This is how, maybe the Venn diagram is where we overlap and where we don't overlap. So this is where your learning gaps are going to be. And I challenge them a little bit as soon as they get here to us on the first day, so they know how to approach their education and their onboarding. And then your confidence as a leader builds credibility for the company. Yeah, we're the first face they see besides HR and IT, right? We're the first real introduction often to the sales org after the interview process. So we have to have that influence. We have to have that confidence and building credibility within this discovery call that they don't know they're in. And then lastly, painting the vision. Be very explicit about what they know and what they need to learn. So I train people all the way from maybe they've been out of university or college for 3 or 4 years, and I train people who are old enough to be my father. So I have to be very gentle, very gracious, very explicit and direct with them on where their learning gaps are probably going to be, because that's helping them to be self-aware and then set them up for success long term. Show them what they can keep from prior jobs and then what will no longer serve them. Right? Okay, so you probably did this in your former sales life, and if I don't know, I just ask, right? I'm trying to discover, what do they know? How did they prospect? How did they run a call, right? And then I can say, okay, that's really good. Actually, sales reps hear voice. Sales reps here find a lot of value in doing this as well, but actually that piece, doesn't work as well in this Everest Group environment, and here's why. And then clarity on what's expected, kind of like a mutual action plan. Okay, you're going to go through this. Do you understand? Yes. And then we're going to do this. And then you understand that you have to be able to demonstrate this. And then out of the nest, baby bird. Great. Awesome. Okay. It's a lot of information. You guys hanging in there? I've only got like 2 more slides. Okay. Tips for developing your program. If you're a one-person shop, reflect on what your strengths are. Lean into those. I know that everyone says work on your weaknesses. It's not that efficient, honestly. Develop a plan that allows you to operate within your strengths, but then marshal other resources for your areas of weakness. So, for example, I told you I'm not good at project or program management. It's not really something I've done extensively throughout my career. So when there's a part of the onboarding program or within the enablement job scope that requires that skill set, I immediately go to my boss, who's very aware. I have this communication with him. Hey, I'm not good at this, Sean. He's like, I know. And so then we have a plan of who else within the organization can I lean in to fill those gaps. Same with hiring. Like I mentioned, I'm hiring in our APAC region, our UK region, in North America soon. I'm looking for people who can augment my weaknesses, who are good at the things I am not good at. I'm good at selling, I'm good at discovery calls. I'm not as good at content development and project management. So I'm going to be looking for the other Lego pieces that can make us a whole Lego house, right? So think about that when you are building your function. How can you build a team where you don't have a lot of mini yous? Because ego can get in the way, and you want to have somebody who's just like you and you think the same way, but you're going to have a more effective function if you can hire people who augment your weaknesses. And then that's, of course, one of the examples. Okay, summary, build your framework, organize within it, think about the long term, and then build the content, use as many outside resources as possible. We talked about leadership and influence. This is a great way to build your brand within the organization, build your leadership, build your influence by reaching out to other people and helping them and using them to help build your content. I'm sure you guys are all doing this anyways. Developing your workflow, stay consistent, and then constantly improve. So with the onboarding program, I do joke with the people who were my guinea pigs in the first onboarding program. I always say, I'm sorry you had such a mediocre program. And they say, no, Lauren. I'm like, no, I know it was subpar. It's fine for the first cohort. But now we've got a machine going. Now we're starting to implement tech. Now we're starting to get notice from the other parts of the business to where HR wants a piece of the action on what we're doing over in sales. So every single onboarding cohort, pick something, just one thing to improve. Implement something new, a new trick. If it doesn't work, they'll be okay. Keep going. But that's all I have. Happy to take questions or we can go have a drink. Who has the first question? Yes.
Testing. Okay, good. So in your layered approach, what's the time frame that you have for each of those?
I can go back to that. So it's 1 week, actually.
Okay.
So learn the company is 1 week, learn the job 1 week, products is 1 week, and the sales process is 1 week, but that's also when they're getting their territory, and we're doing the discovery call role play and having them check off the rest of the little things they need to do in onboarding.
Okay. And what size are your cohorts?
It's been anywhere from 2 to 7 at a time.
Okay.
And it's constant. It's been pretty much every month where I'll get a call from HR says, hey, someone's starting in 2 weeks. Someone else is starting. But it's pretty streamlined. It's not extensive at this point because of the sizes are small, so we run them quickly.
Yeah, thank you.
Yeah. Hi.
Hello. How was your laser experience?
The laser?
Yeah. That wasn't really my question.
There it goes.
Yes, I love it. Okay, so
I've had
you
an Austin
said
Powers meme. Okay, sorry, what?
sharks with lasers on their heads. So you said that having a really clear outcome goal for your onboarding was really important, and that you focus on getting them to build quality pipeline as quickly as possible. How have you worked with your sales leaders to take their reps the rest of the way and set that expectation so that after your first and second and third cohort go through, you aren't getting the feedback, well, they're really good at building pipeline, but like, where's the negotiation training or whatever? Like, how have you set those expectations with the rest of the org?
That's a great question. So the sales leaders, we don't have a lot of them since we're not a large organization. They were in on it from the beginning. Their fingerprints are also on the murder weapon, right? So they agreed this is what we need to focus on for right now. Now at this point, a year or so into the program build, we're starting to move towards some other goals, right? So now we need them to run an effective discovery call. Next, we're going to focus on negotiation skills, which we have a sales team in India, and those folks, they negotiate from the cradle. They are amazing. So I think I might just get them to help teach, but yeah. Other questions? Okay. Well, thank you for letting me speak to you, and I hope everyone has a great evening. Thank you.